Lifespans. It's Dr. Aim. Welcome to week 6, September 27th through October 3rd. And this week is over industry versus inferiority. And so we've left preschool. We're not quite a teen. So this is the child. Just kind of in general terms, childhood. It is the stage we're going to put between, 7 up to 11 or 12. It's that in between stage. The school age oftentimes can also be referred to as the elementary years. And the cool aspect of this stage is it is when, so like as we've mentioned, the industry versus inferiority, it's the stage when the child is kind of self-discovery. Now I've been exploring, and now I'm going to start to actually discover what is it that I am really good at. The child will start to put the pieces together that defines kind of who they are. This is when they'll go more by, I am the gymnast, or I am good at basketball, or I'm really good at a musical instrument, so I'm a musician. And they try to fulfill that role as they identify that for themselves. Or I'm really good at academics, or this is Johnny always wins the spelling bee because he's really good at spelling. So you get this label, which hopefully is good, a positive, or a role that they're going to then assume. And that becomes their work. Or they just, as an adult, goes to work, that is their work for the day, is to go to school and activities and to fulfill that role. But the psychosocial conflict is an industry versus inferiority. The major question that the child is asking is, what am I not just good at, but what do I feel like I could somewhat excel at? So in reference points to my peers, I kind of feel like I'm slightly good at spelling, or I feel like I'm actually really fast. So when we line up, I'm the one that usually gets to the finish line first, and then therefore they are the runner, or they're the fast person in the grade, or they're the smart person, or they're really good at a musical instrument. They're musically talented. They are the star on the team. Whatever team that may be, they are the star soccer player. And that is important, that they find something that they feel accomplished at, and everyone has something. And it's also good that they realize, and very critical and important that they realize, you're not going to excel at everything, and that's okay. So find your thing, and you do you, and be good at that. Sorry, I can keep getting that before it shuts off. But their important virtue at this stage is competency or confidence, that they get some confidence with something. And the important events are school, that they master school. So now they're not new as a preschooler just entering into a formalized school setting. And when I say formalized, that does not mean going necessarily to a brick and mortar building. That can be homeschool, but they are getting into the routine, and now they're into a rhythm with that. If they have started off feeling, so as we've mentioned in the other ones, whether it's initiative versus guilt, autonomy versus shame and doubt, trust and mistrust, if they have not started off well, they will not enter in then to industry versus inferiority. They won't be able to, the industry of being a successful and grounded and well-rounded child in the elementary years, they won't be able to explore that industry or their job as a child, is to explore the things that they are good at, and then to also work on the things that they're lagging in, and to get that balance of, yes, I am good at this, so I tend to like to do this more, but yet I also have to do this. So yes, I may be an athlete and that comes natural, but you know what? Your academics matter too. So I have to channel my energies also to the things that I don't necessarily, I'm not drawn to or necessarily want to do, but that I realize that they're equally important, because going to school is my job, and doing well in my job is important in to the child. So, thus the importance of industry. Inferiority will be the child that does not receive any support, any compliments or encouragement, or they're not helped and assisted and guided to find something that they can excel at. And this does not mean the opposite, where we're going to give a ribbon for everything and everything is rainbows and butterflies and sprinkles and there's never any negativity. That is not what that means either. But it does mean, and it also doesn't mean going into competitive sports where you feel like you have to dump thousands and thousands of dollars into it. That's not, we're not talking extremes that way, because that's not necessarily positive either. Just because it's available doesn't mean that that's necessarily the best for the child. And then completely on the other end of the spectrum is the child that needs some encouragement, some support. If they love to play basketball, they maybe don't need private lessons, but maybe they could somehow get assisted where they can have a ball at home. They could bounce, on the back patio, or they could bounce in a driveway if they have that available. They maybe not even have their own goal at home, but they can accommodate whatever. But that support of, what, you're good at that, or finding they need that attaboys when they're in this stage, and you'll see that in so this is chapters 9 and 10. We're looking at the psychosocial development in chapters 9, so we'll go through that. But then in chapters 10, and then as we start to enter into 11, but chapter 10 will focus on the behavior and the social aspects of how the child go, how their interactions are together, as we mentioned, where the child young as a toddler will play parallel play, and they can be playing the same thing, but yet not play together. And then as a preschooler, they say, I'm playing house, you're playing house, let's play together, cooperative play. And then we move into the child, where we realize, I not only want to, I need you on my team, or you're good at that, I'm good at this, together we can make a team. And then you get that where if similar interests will draw people together, and it can be strangers, not just someone that happens to live next door. Now you're going to be put into different environments because you're in a classroom setting together, or now you're on a team together, or you practice at the same gym or studio. So that brings the middle, we call it the middle child, between the preschooler and the adolescent. That brings the middle child together with other kids, generally based off of similar interests. So that, if you focus as you study and as you review the materials and the resources, this for this chapter and for this module this week, you're going to see the importance of other children, as well as supportive adults that are going to help guide the child. But the overarching umbrella for this is that industry. They are just trying to figure out what it is that they're good at and that they can excel at, while also keeping the things that could frustrate them and working on that to realize that that will be a holistic approach to their development. But I have an assignment on here, and you'll see it's right when you pull up the main this week, week 6. It's called Freakonomics, and I would like for you to review that information, and I'm going to put a place on Blackboard for you to put your responses, because I think that this is very interesting, and I love to have, when we can, for us to be able to have a rich discussion about this, because it's interesting and everyone has varying perspectives of this, but I kind of want to spur your thought process and get this on your radar so you can mentally munch on this information. But what makes a perfect parent or a perfect environment for a child, knowing they're in this stage of industry versus inferiority? Am I going to feel like I can accomplish something and I have an identity in a certain activity or whatever that may be? And obviously this is hallmark to this stage, but we do realize there's a lot of factors that go beyond this, so it's not just this is their label, but it is a critical part to the middle childhood. But in that, what is the rich soil that's perfect for, obviously it's not perfect, but as close to perfect as possible for that seed of that middle child to be planted in order to develop that inferior, that industry, that sense of a strong sense of accomplishment that's going to make them want to further build, that's going to make them want to continue to go into practice and to get better, or know that there's that goal and I want to do well on my grades and I want to, whatever it is I'm doing, I want to excel. And there's my wonky light again, guys. What is it? What is the environment that makes some kids excel and reach that industry, contrary to the soil where a child will just kind of sit back and feel inferior to everyone else, no confidence, not any will to try? And is that only part of the child, or is that contributed by that soil in which they're planted? So this study was done back in the 1990s, late 1990, I think it was like 1996 or something. Freakonomics, this study was conducted, and it just sampled children across, let me see how many middle child population that we sampled. I don't see a sample size on there, but this was a big study, and it went cross-sectioned all across the United States to find out, is it the child that is pushed really hard and they're in New York, they do nothing but study and go, and they're actually put into school 12 months out of the year, and that's the focus. Like, is that helpful? Is it helpful and ideal for unlimited funds and private lessons and that, or is it too much? Is it what is the middle ground? Obviously we know it's neglect of a child, and no guidance is not ideal, but what is that perfect mix of soil to plant that middle child seed in order for them to grow and flourish into an amazing adolescent that's confident and can take on anything and continues to grow and to build and is a leader and turns into a very solid young adult with direction and purpose. So what is that soil? So when you think about the environment that a child in from 7 to 12, when you think about that age for a minute, what is the perfect environment? And I'm going to list off a few things here, and then I want you to think about it and pick your top 3 And then I'm going to give a little spot on Blackboard for you to put those, because I want to know what you think. And there are others that go beyond this list, but this was the list that Freakonomics Research Study did. But the child has highly educated parents. And again, pick which ones you think would have greatest impact on a positive child that can reach the stage of industry versus inferiority. The child's family is intact. So how important are these? I'm just going to list them off. The child's parents have high socioeconomic status. The child's parents recently moved into a nicer neighborhood. Does neighborhood matter? The child's mother was 30 or older at the time her first child was born. What about if a parent was able to stay home until the child entered preschool or kindergarten? What are the effects of if it was maybe a full-term delivery where the mom had prenatal care and a normal delivery, everything was as normal as possible, that compared to maybe a preterm birth? How about if the child has an opportunity to go to preschool? Is that a contributory factor in your mind? The child's parents or caregivers all speak English as a first language. How important is that? The child's parents regularly take him or her to museums and other educational opportunities. So in other words, maybe even vacations are centered around education and historical landmarks, different things. They have the opportunity basically for vacations and to see a broader world and see through other lenses in other parts of the country and world. The child is adopted versus if the child was a biological child in the home. What about discipline? How important would that be? The parental approach to discipline. The child frequently watches screen time. So if a child has limited screen time, as we've mentioned in some of my other videos, I've mentioned preschool or toddler to preschool, it's easy for screen time to go through the roof. So what about how would that contribute to the soil if screen time was limited versus maybe they had some guidelines but a lot more time and time to explore and educational apps and different things? How would screen time play into it? The child has an opportunity to have either unlimited ebooks, library access, or is frequently read to. How important would that be in the development of the child? And I believe that is most of the list, and you are more than welcome to add additional aspects as well. But what creates, if you could choose 3, then we realize it's a lot bigger than that, but if you're helping to create the fundamental soil for a child to grow in as they're coming preschool into that middle childhood, 7 to 12, what 3 things off of either that list that I just read from Freakonomics or that you can come up with your own, what would be the top 3 things? I didn't even mention the aspect of what part of the country they live in. Would that matter? Access to certain opportunities in certain areas, their maybe political affiliations, their religious affiliations, all of those aspects. But pick 3 and then post those underneath the discussion board for this week. But all of this put together, is the middle child, and you can go through and see. It's pretty. I went through the PowerPoints. They're very cut and dry with the information, that you need to know moving forward. If you have any questions on any aspect of that, though, please reach out. I will continue to chip away as fast as I can with these reflective papers. If you send me an email, if you don't hear back within 24, please resend that email. If I happen to catch it when I'm in clinical, again, I just want to keep reiterating that if I'm in clinical, I'm not at my desk receiving that, it can get buried pretty quickly. So if you don't mind, just resend. And I don't want to have anyone waiting on me whatsoever, so I'm going to try to respond as fast as I can, but do know that I'm chipping away on this end on the grading. But so that is week 6, and if you have any questions, just make sure that reflective paper along with your 3 items for Freakonomics are submitted Sunday by midnight. But have a super week, guys. Bye.